An African summit will be kicked tonight in Italy. It's called an Italy Africa Summit. It will start by dinner and then it will stay for 2 days. Hello, I am Mahlet Ayele, your host at Connect Africa, bringing you the latest from the continent. Now, let's dive into it. So, Italy is summoning African leaders once again. And guess what? More than 20 African leaders and then more than 50 delegations from Africa will be participating in this Italy Africa Summit. We are going to look at into things. Now, what is this Africa Summit that is that's held in Italy but not in Africa? And then until when about this summoning of the African leaders will continue? I just want to look at two things on those two things. Now, first of all, what is it about? I think let's talk about that. So this African summit, it's called the African summit in Italy, called the Mattei Plan. Giorgia Meloni, of the Italian Prime Minister, is said she is about to reset her tie with Africa, and she's saying a lot of things. We know her by criticizing President Emmanuel Macron and anti-immigration, and she says, the French political system is what's exploiting Africa. But what's Italy is doing? What is it looking for in this Africa summit? Now, look, on the 28th and 29th of January, meaning starting tonight, there will be an African summit, which is, much anticipated. In what way, I don't know. But in this summit, more than 50 delegations of this summit. There will be also the EU leaders and the EU IMF, like World Bank. Now, the purpose of the conference is to present Italy's strategic plan that aims to review the country's approach to the African continent. This is where to present Italy's strategic plan that aims to review the country's approach to the African continent. Now, what is it, this plan that, is it a new one? Now, the Italian premier, of course, the Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, unveiled in quotation a non-predatory approach aimed at fostering cooperation. Now, though critics are arguing that the plan, dubbed, it's called also a Mattei Plan, which is named after Enrico Mattei, who is an Italian public administrator in the 1950s, who was advocating for Italy to support North African resources, or North African governments to grow their economies and develop their natural resources, because Italy's survival will depend on them. Now, Meloni is, what she's doing is she's showcasing the Mattei Plan as the crown jewel of her foreign policy, aiming to once again renew the Italy's approach to the African continent as things stand. However, the plan is far from being comprehensive. First of all, it stayed being a secret plan, because this is what's happening. Also, what we saw in the last the US Africa summit, the plans were actually very secretive. They were just released, the agendas few days before. They were not discussed with African government. There was no back and forth correspondence. So these people have actually no say, meaning these leaders, when they reach at the summit place. That's why we call just Italy Africa Summit, or like they are summoned. They're just there to be told what is the plan of Italy in Africa. That's what they are for. And they just go taking, because it's an extravaganza of shopping for their first ladies of the African countries and for their per dime, and you name it. I mean, nobody is left. I mean, everybody wants to attend these meetings in Europe and in the US. Now, it costs about this conference about 3 million euros a year. I mean, her plan reportedly, and has 4-year duration. So according to them, the goal is to enhance energy cooperation. This is what Italy is looking for. They are dependent of energy from Africa. But I mean, most of the European countries and Europe is right now hungry for energy because they have deliberately, the US has destroyed that pipe, the Nord pipe that's coming from Russia together with Norway in order to weaken the economy of Russia. So now they are looking for somewhere else for their energy in Africa, including also Latin America. There's a lot of, the hungry Europe is everywhere. So now, as if this is something for us, and also, strategically or, systematically, they have also added there will be health, education. You give us your energy, your natural, basically what they are saying is your natural resources, and we give you back, maybe in terms of we help or we inject your fund for health and education. I mean, have the factory, have the refinery inside Africa. That's how you can use, African countries can benefit, African people can benefit. Have it there, to have the processed product, not just taking the natural resource and then you refine it and sell it back to us with your company like Shell, Total. I mean, you name it. Okay, so this is basically to benefit the Italy's economy. Italy is not a rich country, it's heavily indebted, and just like any other African country, owing a lot of money to the European Union. The easy thing is that they don't have to knock the door of IMF or World Bank. In fact, they can, but EU is rich enough to support them. I wish the African Union is like that, so that the African countries can go and knock the door of the African Union whenever they want money. Okay. Now, we have also the African Development Bank, but the African Development Bank itself is financed by these so-called international financial institutions, mainly owned by or only voicing the Western countries. Now, one of the other critics about the content that being secret is that, look, now I'm reading you what is something in quotation. We have all been waiting to find out more about the content of the plan, but as clarified by a government's decree, the strategy will be outlined starting from this conference and in the weeks to come. We would like the action plan to mainly focus on Africa's needs and the needs of the states and the country's civil societies. We also like to see the use of a bottom-up approach. Really, this is how you use your bottom-up approach, meaning that nothing is being imposed from above. One positive aspect of the Mattei Plan is that its long-term version. In other words, we are not dealing with a single emergency like in the case of migrant arrivals, but rather we are talking about a long-term strategy shared. Gianpaolo Silvestri, Secretary General of the AVSI, whatever that is. Another plan that she's introducing is a non-predatory plan, which is, as if we want to work, this is what she says, if we want to work on strategies that brings African and European interests together. One example is energy, because Africa is potentially a huge energy producer and Europe has an energy supply problem, said the Italian, prime minister. So these are, this is as far as what's about the plan of this Italy-Africa summit is. But there is a question, now why, my question is that, what is it in it for Africa? How important are such summits actually for the African continent? Why they have to be summoned to Italy if it's really about Africa? One, we have the African Union, we have one of the African states. If you want to benefit, bring your people and let's participate there, which is cost effective. And yeah, that's it. Why not having representatives? Maybe their cost is as well covered by Italy. I don't know. But anyway, now that brings me to my second agenda, which is the African leaders being summoned by now Georgia Meloni, but it has been there, being summoned by Joe Biden, being summoned by Erdogan, being summoned by Vladimir Putin, you name it, by China. Actually, China started, to oppose this. China, is it China or Japan? It's China. I think it was now on second or third time. China has started to do it, bringing the China-Africa summit into Africa. And, it varies from place to place. That is the way to do it, okay, if it's really about Africa. Now, I want to bring you one example, of what President William Ruto said right after he came to power, or he took power in the Mo Ibrahim Foundation Summit in Nairobi, which has to do with the climate change. Now, he said something important about African leaders being summoned by the Western nation or by the Western leaders. Now I just want to share this with you. Let's hear him, and I'm going to come back to you. Yes, this one. Yeah, I think it's this one. Let's hear it.
That it will not also decided that it will not going to be business as usual. We have these meetings, Africa, US meeting, Africa, Europe, Africa, Turkey, Africa,
India.
Now we are waiting for, there is another one, Africa, Russia.
And Africa, Japan.
And Africa, Japan. We have made the decision that it is not intelligent for 54 of us to go and sit before one gentleman from another place. And I mean, and sometimes we are mistreated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We are loaded into buses like school kids.
Yeah.
And it's not right.
Well, you are summoned,
It's not right. So
exactly what I said. This is what he said. They are summoned. That is, to put it really simply, they are summoned. Now, very good speech, well articulated. This is something what we all feel as an African. We feel even ashamed as an ordinary citizen for our leaders to be summoned. And when William Ruto said that, sometimes even we are loaded in the bus. You all know, or you all remember, the incident where they went to attend what's her name? Queen Elizabeth, her funeral, and they were put all in a bus. Okay, all the African leaders, and no leaders in the world was treated like that. It was actually the Ethiopian President Sahle Work Zewde, really kudos to her, who refused. My mandate prohibits me from doing this. If you cannot organize it, my embassy will take care of this. And she gave a lesson for all the African leaders, and she took her own shuttle to attend that funeral. Okay, this is how they are mistreated, but still they do it. Well, now let's talk about William Ruto. Then why are you? He's the one who jutted out to participate this meeting in Italy. He's one of the 20 African leaders. Okay, in fact, according to the statistics, now I'm on him. These days I'm on him. You can say that because he says something and we find him not doing that or not being abided by the words that he's telling us. So he's one of those 20 African leaders who went there, who jutted out of Africa to attend this summit. In fact, according to the statistics as of December 2023, Ruto has done 48 foreign trips, spending more than 350 million of Kenyan shilling. Okay, although he's saying that he can account for every penny that's spent, but he has done more and he's in power only for 15 months, mind you. He's less than 1 month and 1 year and a half. he's less than that, like 15 months only in power, and he has done more than 48 trips, and more than half of them are outside Africa. And he has done a lot of them even after that speech, because that speech was right after he came to power. But he's again there. Okay, now, yeah, it's really, really interesting. I mean, they have done the Russia-Africa summit. They have done different other, I think the Turkey one or the India one, I don't know. I mean, many of them. And now they are doing this Italy-Africa summit, the Europe-Africa summit. Now, look, President William Ruto has, one of the things he's going to do is that, look, in a press release of a State House of Kenya, and according to the spokesperson, he said Ruto will deliver an address on the crucial topic of energy security. He's very good at speech. I mean, we don't take you from now on for your words, because many times we find you doing the opposite anyway. And then also Ruto, now currently he serves as the Committee of the African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change, which is called CAHO, CAHO. CAHOSEC or something. Now, Ruto's, according to the Ruto's itinerary, they said that he will be engaged in a bilateral relationship on the sideline with European Union leaders, World Bank, IMF officials. Yes, they are your friends. And then also on the sideline meetings, they have said Ruto is scheduled to meet African leaders. Okay, I mean, you can be in Africa, or you can pick your phone or talk to the embassies, their ambassadors, who are involved. So he will talk to African leaders involved in peace process in the DRC, Sudan, and South Sudan, highlighting the broader regional significance of his visit. Now, the talks regarding Africa on the sideline are being held under the auspices of the community of St. Egidius between the government of South Sudan and opposition parts under the South Sudan Opposition Movement Alliance. Okay, now this tells me really, why am I bringing this? Our own issues, the conflicts that we are having in the continent. I mean, these countries, both Kenya and South Sudan, are part of IGAD, okay, the Eastern African Community, and also the Eastern African Community. Now, why not discussing it within that group, within that umbrella? What is the need? I mean, you all have to go to Italy really to do this. Go Italy to do your Italy-Africa summit, but really to discuss this with the oppositions. Can't you do it in Nairobi? Can't you do it in South Sudan? Can't you do it in the next neighboring countries, which is closer for both of you? I mean, yeah, this is, it looks like, everybody wants to be in Italy, and of course, and then have this meeting. That's about, there are two things I said. One, I will discuss about what is it about this meeting. What is this Italy-Africa summit? It's called the Mattei Plan. We talked about it, and it's basically the energy meeting, and where Meloni wants the energy, the African resources from Africa, and basically also block her other agenda is to block the migration from Africa. What's her plan? How does she block it? By giving them a job? Are you going to set up a factory or industry in Africa? How are you going to do it? Because to quote her, this is what she said. Look, this is what she said in quotation. Let me just read it for you. She said, my goal is to work in Africa and block the departures in Africa. She's working with the security team, with the president of Tunisia and others, with the government of Tunisia and others in North Africa who are bordering the Mediterranean Sea, where, the African migrants cross, and then kills African migrants while they are there and tortures them and denying them their human rights. Tunisia has the blood of African migrants, the sub-Saharan Africans in its hands, and it's getting a lot of millions of dollars from the European Union, including Italy and France particularly. These are the things they wanted to discuss. And all of them, all the North African leaders, if you want the list, all the North African leaders are part of this summit, and they are attending it. Libya, Tunisia, Egypt, all of them. Yeah, and the other thing is, it was my second topic was, the African leaders being summoned by the Western governments, and they are doing it again and again. They are just lip servicing us when they tell us, "Oh, we are going to stop it." Now we have this mechanism where few representatives will go. Where is the implementation? Why don't you do it? Why you are wasting millions of dollars of the tax, the tax you are collecting from the poor people? Anyway, fam, let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this? Share your view, okay? Let us know about the agenda of Giorgia Meloni for this Africa Summit, so-called Africa Summit being held in Italy. And let us know also, what is your view of African leaders being summoned to Italy? Yeah, that was it for me. Thanks again for tuning in. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you like what we bring you here, give it thumbs up, and please share the video with your network, with your family, to whomever that you think this is really relevant. You can help us. You can help the channel with that, because it helps the YouTube algorithm by, while we are also empowering each other with information and knowledge. You can also further help us by donating to our PayPal account, which you can find in the description section. I will also pin it in the comment. That was it for me. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one. It's a bye-bye for me for now.